We are recording so we can share this session with you afterwards, because if you have joined us before, you will know how fast this session is in terms of the information you share. If you haven't joined us before, be warned, this session is fast, because we have, in under an hour, we cover as many social media updates as we can from the last month. And as always, there is quite a lot to cover. If we haven't met before, or as a refresher, my name is Luan Wise. I'm a social media marketer, marketing consultant, deliver training to organisations and keep up to date with all the news. I think we could both probably just introduce ourselves, Andy, as social media news junkies.
Pretty much it. Yeah, that pretty much explains us. Yeah,
yeah.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, so I think let's just dive in, because it is a big slide deck today with lots of updates. So, oh, actually, Andy, I need to give you some power to share the screen.
Do it.
I'll keep letting people in.
Thank you very much. All right, then. Want to touch on this first?
I will start on this. So you may be aware that these updates that Andy and I do are monthly, but 3 times a year we host, I say we, the Lighthouse Social, where you can find all your news updates and resources, host an online summit. It runs from 9 o'clock till 3 p.m. and it is entirely free, thanks to the time from all of the speakers. And I'm going to share it in the chat because I have just updated Eventbrite with the agenda for June. I know some people have registered already, and if you have, you will be getting an email in about 5 minutes to confirm that you have registered already, because I'm that organised on my schedulers. The summit next time, 30th of June, I'm really, really excited about. I'm always excited about it, but I think we've particularly got some great topics, as well as our usual great lineup of speakers. I'm multitasking with letting people in. Just a second. Got people in the waiting room, I think. Yep. So our topics next time, we have Mark Shuke, who, if you haven't come across him, he is many years ago, but he is the former editor of Marketing Week magazine. Now consulting, has worked in agencies for B2B, is the author of a book called Boring to Brave. And he is going to talk about social media, the channel most likely to lead a braver marketing revolution. We have Kim Crowder, who is based in the States, photos right in the middle there, an amazing lady who is going to actually do a Q&A interview with me. We're recording in the next week or so about how to use social media as a tool to advocate diversity and inclusion. We've also got Jake. Jake, I don't know if you're on the call today, but he's a regular attendee of these sessions. Jake is the social media manager at a company called Cult Technology, but is also the voluntary head of social media at Pride in London. So a busy month coming up for Jake. And he is going to be doing a session for us on how to use social media to show support for LGBTQ+ rights. So another really, really important topic. Dave Penny is back. He is director of marketing, at UCAS Media. If anyone's involved in higher education, you know UCAS. If you ever applied to university, you did it through UCAS. He did a talk for us in a very first summit last year, and he's going to be back this year to talk about the latest Freshers survey and share with us Gen Z behaviours and how they are changing, what they are thinking, feeling, doing, what they're buying from. Andy and I will be doing our regular updates as part of the summit, and then we will be closing with the amazing Katie Howell, who will be talking about how B2B brands are using TikTok in 2023. So an awesome lineup, really excited about it. So do hope you can join. If you can't join us live, then do register still, because you will then get the first view of the recordings. So that's what we'll be doing next month. Let's talk about today's updates.
Cool. Let's do it. Oh, actually, quick plug on my side.
Of course.
So if anyone finds themselves in need of a scheduler for some content, then look no further than Adobe Express. So I'm sure you would have seen me talk about this every time we talk about this. So yeah, it's entirely free to use as well. So if you want to plan and schedule your content, just check out Adobe Express and you'll find this. Right then, let's get straight into it. Yeah, I'm Andy, if we've not met before. I'm one of the founders of a company called Content Cal, which we grew using social media over the course of 7 years. And then we got bought by Adobe, hence the reason I'm talking about Adobe Express. Cool. So the purpose of this session is threefold. We're going to talk through the data, we'll talk through some trends, and we'll talk through the most important feature updates. We don't talk about every news story over the course of the month. We talk about the ones that actually matter, the ones that are meaningful for you as a business. That being said, not all of these things will be relevant to everyone because, as we say, once again, every week, don't ever feel compelled to do everything. We talk about here, no one can do everything. Luan and I certainly do not. So we are both advocates of focus over, trying to go broad. So ideally, the purpose of this session, once a month, you can get a well-rounded view as to the direction of social and can kind of tweak and orientate your strategy if you feel appropriate. So you can kind of sit back, don't worry about the stream of updates that you see every single week in the world of social, sit back and you can think about the ones that actually matter. And that's the purpose of today. So we're going to start with some data. Now, best time to post data, I'm going to put a massive caveat to this because this is from Sprout Social, because this is the best data I see related to best time to post. The reason I say it's the best is because it's globally normalized in terms of the time zone. So this is relevant to wherever you are in the world, which I love. And two, just in terms of the sample of data, it's massive. So the massive caveat, which I'm sure you'll agree with here, Luan, is like, use your own data, use your own analytics. This is general best practice, but it all depends on your audience. Use your own intelligence, but also continue to experiment. So I've actually just seen this data, started to experiment at different times. In fact, second best performing post on LinkedIn ever. I published at 6:30 a.m. 2 days ago. So who'd have thunk it? So once again, and I did that by accident because I failed to hit the schedule button. I just published it now. I was like, oh, forget it, it's gone now. And it happened to do incredibly well. But yeah, it just means like testing and learning. None of this is absolutely bang on. It just gives us an idea. I think one thing that I took from here that's really interesting is like most of this is exactly the same across the different channels. Basically, mornings typically work best. We've always seen that as a data point. TikTok performs better in the evenings or afternoons, really. That was an interesting thing. I've always published in the morning, so I'm taking that as a kind of thing I'm going to experiment with. And that's the way I suggest using data like this, just to fuel experimentation. Luan, do you have any takes on this?
I love the fact that errors or mistakes often deliver the best performing content, which is our world summarized, isn't it? Yeah. I think what's always useful, and we do say this every month, that industry insights, benchmarks, data reports like this are useful guidance. And I think it's useful for us to kind of go, oh, actually, we need to think about what the best times for us to post are, as a reminder as well. If you're looking for a starting point, use these industry reports. But as we both always say, test, trial, and look at your own data for this as well. But, to be honest, from the amount of data that I've looked at, I would agree with this in terms of the mornings, TikTok absolutely later at night. I would just summarize all of this with one word, and that would be post consistently. Get known. You post early in the mornings. I know that. I post early in the mornings. We know other people do. And you start to look out for that content. I know people will be starting to look for you on LinkedIn to see what your weekly roundup and 5 tips are. Consistency is the most important in terms of timings on posting.
Agreed with that. A couple other bits of data that we've scoured from across the internet over the last month or so. Interesting to see the growth of Snapchat. I think very few of us on this call, myself included, actively use Snapchat, but I'd love to know if anyone actually is. It went through the doldrums for a little bit and seems to be on the rise again. Unsurprisingly, we're seeing a little bit of a downward trend on Twitter. And TikTok isn't lighting up the leadership charts in the same way it was, isn't growing as quickly as it was, but naturally it's one of the fastest ever applications to 1 billion monthly users. So, it's going to slow down at some point. Nothing particular to to take from this, I don't think, other than the fact that it's interesting to see Instagram start to have a bit more of a resurgence as well. So I found that particularly interesting because certainly over the last year or so, we've been seeing that in a bit of a downward trend. It's also over the last month been reporting season from a lot of the networks where they report to investors and the markets. Snapchat seeing great growth. We just spoke about this. Pinterest seeing fantastic growth. Here, as you can see here, they actually post-COVID had a bit of a dip, but they seem to have course corrected that, and they're back up again because you can see here, like post-COVID, they started to see some downward trend, but they're back up again. But ultimately, you can see social media in a pretty healthy state, including LinkedIn as well, which obviously is Luan and my favorite. You'll see certainly from a European perspective, UK isn't particularly strong, so 35 million plus members in the UK. So yeah, LinkedIn continues to perform really well and continues, I think, for both Luan and myself, continues to be one of the strongest platforms to drive growth on social right now. I don't want to spend too long talking about data, given how much we got to cover today, but are there any takes that you want to add here?
Just one on this one as a reminder, really, in case you have missed this as a news story, is that LinkedIn have now withdrawn from China. So we may see that 59 million plus disappear. About 18 months ago, there was a lighter version, a careers app only version of LinkedIn in China. They have just withdrawn, which unfortunately has led to a number of layoffs around China. We do also have restrictions still in Russia and Ukraine in terms of LinkedIn. So we may see these numbers changing a bit in the next update, but there is reasons behind that rather than the fact that people are no longer using this platform or the platform's growing. So I think, there's a real strength in LinkedIn. And they have just turned 20. As my fun fact for the day, it was LinkedIn's 20th birthday on the 5th of May. So, one of the oldest social media platforms and still very underused, I believe.
Agreed, definitely agree.
Like this one.
Yeah, exactly. Mind-blowing YouTube stat. I'm always very bullish about the growth of YouTube. I say this every single month, so I'm kind of boring. But yeah, YouTube still represents incredible opportunity for businesses, both through shorts and long form content. And one of the main reasons I believe that is the viewership that you see on smart TVs. So 45% of YouTube viewership taking place on TVs. And you can think about that for your brand being able to penetrate like the living room of your target customers. That was only ever reserved for, the Unilevers of this world. And that's phenomenal, especially as viewing habits continue to shift increasingly towards YouTube and more social orientated content. And the same applies to TikTok as well, because since TikTok have launched their smart TV app, more people start consuming content on TVs. But it's just, YouTube is really significant in this. Like, look at this stat: time spent watching YouTube on TV now exceeds any other individual network or streaming service. I mean, like, that is just so crucial for us understanding how important that is as part of our broader content strategy. So yeah, these are the kind of like insights that this whole session is all built on, really.
And I think, I wasn't a big YouTube consumer, but I have been over the last year in terms of almost seeing like a TV channel. And dare I say, my favorite YouTubers all upload on a Sunday. So now our Sunday evenings are YouTube watching evenings. Anyone wants to share? Fan life, YouTube subscriptions. I'm a fan. But we watch it on TV, so I consider that I'm watching TV.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Cool. Couple of trends for you. So Reels continues to be a significant thing for both Instagram and Facebook. So we'll talk a little bit around some of the growth opportunity on Facebook later on. But Reels, even though there was that whole kind of make Instagram great again thing a couple of months ago, as they pushed more and more Reels and they kind of rode back a little bit, fundamentally, they're pushing on with Reels. And if we really want our Instagram content to be seen over the period of time, we know that Reels continues to be the number one place for that, really. And as you can see, that it's having significant business impact for them. Right, because the big challenge that Instagram were trying to solve was people spend 10 times the amount of time watching TikTok than they do spending that time on Instagram. That is a disastrous statistic for any business, right? So naturally, if they've come out with a new feature, aka Reels in this instance, that is driving time on the platform, they're going to continue to push that. So this is more like an early FYI. They're going to go back to pushing this incredibly hard. I mean, they've kind of rode back a little bit, but they'll continue to push that towards the end of this year and into next year for sure. And talking about application changes, growth, etc. And it's always interesting just from the month to month looking at the changes here, because everyone's talking about BlueSky over the course of May. One of the other kind of what we call federated social networks, and what we mean by federated means that people can join it from other networks, etc. So I won't go too much into that because we'll go down a rabbit hole on that. But ultimately, the idea here is, as Twitter, has some issues, it's fair to say, a lot of the user base are starting to find other platforms to migrate to. So firstly was Mastodon, which grew quite quickly to about 2 million users. And then BlueSky has followed a very similar trajectory. This is also has the kind of other interesting notion of being funded by the ex-founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. So I think there's a lot of good fundamentals here. It's still a little bit of a, how would I describe it? More social pro, I would say, a little bit more nerdy, harder to join, something that is a bit more of a niche use case. So I don't expect this to go mainstream like TikTok, for example, but like with any of these new networks, it's just worthwhile keeping an eye on. We'll report on it every single month. And there's quite a few companies hedging their bets on a Twitter failure. So they're expecting to try and mop up the users from that, and more to come on that point later on in this session. Anyway, any takes on this, Luan, before we move on?
For me, what I've seen of it, it feels the way that they kind of launched it and the conversations are a bit like when Clubhouse announced and you had to get an invitation to it, didn't you? So they're kind of going for the FOMO, who's got an invite, or I've got some invites to get started. Dare I say it, I'm in the area of just kind of being a bit, oh, here's another new one, I'm just going to watch it and wait and see, rather than dive in and think that I'm going to move my life over to something new. So as Andy said, watch it, see what happens. Don't worry about diving into all these new features straight away.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Perfectly exampled by Lemonade, because last month we were talking about it's number one of the App Store. This is quite interesting. It's got some good fundamentals here, and it's by no means is this gone. It hasn't actually properly launched yet, but Lemonade is the basically mashup of Instagram and Pinterest that has been created by the parent company of TikTok, who are called ByteDance. So Lemonade is their approach to very much the non-authentic social. So it's the antithesis of Be Real, and it's very much the aesthetic, manicured look of Instagram, of basically Instagram and Pinterest, where you can kind of get inspired around certain looks, aesthetics around something, and it's really driven around like e-commerce and social commerce. But either way, it's dropped back, and like all of these things, it's like there's just don't be taken in by the initial buzz. Worthwhile kind of being curious about it, but naturally tends to pay to be a little more circumspect with this, especially as we've got limited time and resource. Watch how things unfold, and just stay curious. It's probably my guidance on it.
Well, I think the chances are, based on experience and history, is that if these new platforms take off, the features that are unique to these platforms will be copied by the others anyway. So maybe think about it more about what is different about this, what is the feature on this one that people are talking about, and then we can expect that those will be taken on by Facebook, etc. very soon.
That's a really good call out, definitely. Cool. All right, new features. Insta.
Shall I do this one?
Yeah,
Instagram.
absolutely.
changes this month. Isn't this still changing? I really like this one. We've talked about broadcast channels being a new feature. It's one-to-many. It is, I believe, still just in the US. It hasn't rolled out to us in the UK yet, but this is where someone can set up a broadcast channel, as Adam Missouri is doing, as Mark Zuckerberg is doing, where they can literally broadcast to many people at a time. The update on this is that you can now invite guests. So maybe in the future, when we get it in the UK, we could do a session like this as an Instagram broadcast channel.
Yep, I think this is a really cool idea.
Yeah. Songs are coming to photo carousels. We know that music is really important on some platforms, and that is, in part TikTok's, huge success. For me, songs on photos, I'm not too worried about this one. And the reason I'm not is because I thought about it and thought, actually, I have my sound off on my phone nearly all the time. I probably do turn it up for TikTok when I'm in TikTok mode, but for everything else, it's off. So am I going to see songs on carousels? Possibly not. And would it make a difference to me personally? Possibly not, but nice to have if you think it's relevant for your brand and your business, and it will be for some. I was thinking about the Zuckerberg quote, the trend one, and actually this is what it's all about, isn't it? It's about viewing time. It's about how long people stay in the app and participating. So being able to see who liked your Instagram story for longer is what it's all about. That is a metric that we need to be thinking about when we're looking at our stats, is, are people viewing the whole story because they are longer now? Are people viewing the whole reel? That's what we need to be aiming for. So we've now got some data. Notes. We talked about notes last month, didn't we? And that as a feature, and whether people are using it as a kind of a status update, old school Skype, or not. Now, they're sticking with it. Now you can choose who you share your notes with rather than it being for everyone. Collabs. Collaborative group stories are coming. And I think we could group this under the heading of actually collaboration, and how the platforms are increasingly encouraging us and providing these features to allow us to collaborate with other people, with brands, etc. And so I think I'm going to like this one, having collaborative group stories.
Yeah, the more we can work with others, the happier I am. So yeah. I very much like this.
It works. Open to collaboration options on Instagram. This, I think, is useful for creators, allowing you to let people know that you are up for collaborations, that you're happy for your content to be shared. So I know on the next slide, we've got something about UGC and just how important that is. So yeah, I'm really liking Instagram adding these additional options. I think it's going to be really good for creators, who we've talked about a lot, but really good for brands as well.
Yeah, it'd be so much easier to find those people. Rather than, like, for example, brands might cold outreach you, for example, Luan. I know I did back in the day. That's how we started. To find people to work with that support your mission and your purpose, etc. Yeah. But finding those people that are open to it, I think it's a real good step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's just making it easier. And I'm a huge fan of user generated content. I've worked with clients where actually we had so much user generated content, we didn't need to produce too much ourselves, particularly around stories. So again, this option and they've changed the names of this option around showing that you're open to UGC, letting creators switch on, they're allowing brands, to partner and boost it, and then to be able to run ads from UGC content as well. Really, really, really like this one.
Yeah, because that was always a challenge before, of you might have a load of people tagging you and using your product on Insta, but you didn't really have a nice way, or it's a kind of messy way of saying, I'll message them and say, can we use this? And it's a bit painful. So here, just makes that so much simpler. So
making it easier to use UGC. This is about shopping, which we'll talk about shopping as well through this, but I just think this is going to be a game changer, making it for easier. Are we going to be more likely to create UGC content around products, but for brands to be using it, this is the authentic messaging. People trust it when it comes from other people, and it saves you content creation time. So I think everyone would welcome that.
Definitely. I think a point that we sometimes don't talk about around UGC is the importance of representation here. You spoke about like diversity inclusion before, and obviously that's going to be doing that talk on it. Users being able to see themselves or people like them using a product like this is such an important thing. So I love it. I just wanted to call that point out.
Yeah, I mean, there's communities around this stuff now as well, using products. I've never known how I really feel about GIFs, or whether I'm just a bit of my stepson calls me a fun sponge sometimes around things like this. I don't know if anyone else uses that term. I think I'm a bit of a fun sponge around whether I use GIFs or not, but I'm seeing them more in my feed. I know people love them. Use the chat, tell me what you think about GIFs. Being able to add GIFs as your comments on Instagram, one to watch.
Yeah, I personally am a fan. It's long overdue, this one. I spend far too long looking for the perfect GIF, it's fair to say.
That's why.
I'm sometimes like 5 minutes in trying to do something. I'm like, I really should have done something better in the last 5 minutes. So I find that a bit of an issue. But like, you can imagine straight away, there could be some really interesting content people could make just off the back of this feature. Be like, react to this image with one GIF, best GIF wins, or whatever. So because it's still participation, it's still comments. We know we want to drive as many comments on our content as possible, so it just gives us a bit more creative freedom around that, I would say.
Yes, I think that's perhaps my issue, is like spending hours and then ending up with the same GIFs. This is another new option coming from Instagram, text only. Are Meta trying to compete with Twitter? Yes, they are.
Yeah, so we said we were going to talk about the fallout of Twitter and people positioning themselves for it. So Insta spotted this a little while ago and thought, you know what, in case Twitter explodes, we're going to have a net to catch those people that are bored with Twitter. We'll have a net to catch them in. And you'll notice it looks exactly like Twitter. So I find this fascinating, and it talks to your point actually, Luan, about what you were saying earlier about, is this just feature only? You'll find, is this new product? The reason we see like new products kind of break out, generate a bit of excitement and not being able to sustain is because they don't have the network effects, right? They don't, Be Real starting from a cold start of like, getting to X million users is super impressive, but then getting to, 1.5 billion, that's a different level. So these products already have network effects. So you can expect that this network will, this new platform, which is as yet unnamed, I think this has some real benefit personally, and I'm sometimes guilty of getting overexcited about new stuff. But personally, I think this one's a great thing because it already it's integrated into Instagram. So already your following and followers are replicated here. It's text only, but you can see you can include some images too. So I'm a huge fan of text-based communication, right? Because it's easier, and I prefer the written word. I prefer reading it and writing it. 500 characters is our limit. We've got, and very interestingly, the other point to note is that it will connect with, people on other networks. So BlueSky, Mastodon, what we call kind of federated other social platforms. So it's creating much more of less of a walled garden, and the kind of barriers of these social networks are starting to open up with this. And I find that a really fascinating kind of trajectory. Nothing we need to know or do about that as business owners, marketers, etc. But I find that fascinating because maybe at some point in the future, social media is a lot less closed between these networks. It becomes much more like I'm hanging out on the platform that I like the best, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to be able to follow people on another platform because they happen to be on that one, right? See what I mean? So I find, that will be a fascinating thing to see how that plays out. Sorry, I interjected here. I got very excited.
No, it was cool. Well, just reading this on the screen and, thinking about it, we talked about the fallout of Twitter. So, yes, things are still changing with Twitter. We've got some features coming up. They have a new CEO coming soon. Like any great marketer should do. What I love about the copy that's, surrounding this, this is what's coming, is they're addressing the challenges that people are talking about Twitter. So, you know, bring your fans with you. We're taking safety seriously. It'll be compatible with other apps. You know, all the pain points or the challenges are being addressed with this. So, you know, I think this one, for all our new features that we go watch and don't worry about, I think this one could take off when it does launch.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's touch on some touch on some Facebook stuff. If you run any Facebook or Instagram shops, big news. So you've got about a year, and probably by the end of this year, really. If you run your Facebook shop and it all directs to another checkout, so I don't know, Shopify or something like that, or your website particularly, that won't work by the end of this year. So Facebook and Instagram shops all need to have like native Facebook and Insta checkout for them to still work. If you're not doing Insta shops, then you can kind of ignore the last 10 seconds. But if you are, definitely big news, and make sure you're kind of keeping on top of that. There's new lead gen forms on Facebook to get some more fidelity from our leads. So it kind of looks a little bit more like kind of LinkedIn in terms of these forms that we can define, and we'd have that fed into our CRM as well. So we've got more fidelity around Facebook ads for those that are running those. Location tagging coming to Facebook Reels. So location's super important when it comes for product discovery. So we'll have that. We already have this on Insta Reels today, and but now it's coming to Facebook Reels, so even easier. If you've changed, I want to have a bit of a kind of call out on this one, because if you've recently updated your Facebook account to a professional account, so your Facebook profile, not your page, your profile. If you change that to a professional mode, so like a creator account, you get this new thing like, you know, how healthy is your page, which I think is a really interesting way of making sure that you have all of the right components done. And in terms of your performance as well, it's really interesting. But the other thing that's worthwhile calling out, especially with Facebook, like professional mode and creator mode, is that I'm seeing a lot of people report some substantial reach improvements as a result of having this on, particularly through Facebook Reels. Facebook seem to be pushing this incredibly hard. Any content posted to your professional personal account, they really want to promote. So I'm currently, so based off that news, because I heard this firsthand through a few creators that I know, I'd seen it written up as well, but I was like, I'm going to have to explore this a little bit more. So just yesterday, I changed my own personal Facebook account to professional mode, did all of this kind of page health stuff. And now I'm going to start posting to it regularly, posting Reels to it regularly. So this time next month, or for that June 30th at the Lighthouse Summit, I'll report back some findings. But I definitely want to put that on everyone's radar as an interesting call out for this month. That's for sure. So, sorry, I've fired through Facebook there, but any points you wanted to raise, Luan?
I think the only points I you know, it had a prompt there, and I think it's just a call out perhaps to go look out for the prompts that the platforms show you when you're looking at your page, to either tell you that something's changed, or you haven't completed this box, or did you know you could add this, because they are trying to help you complete your profiles. And if anyone's seen, I'm running some sessions at the moment on how to master a social media audit, and the key takeaway from that is do your housekeeping, check that you've filled everything in, because when I do audits, that's a really quick win, but it's the stuff that's missing. So don't ignore those kind of pop-ups and do the checks. But looking forward to seeing how you get on with doing that, Andy.
Yeah, it's a really good call out. Yeah, it's missed by so many folk.
Yeah,
of like, yeah,
good,
just and having like consistency across all your profiles, etc.
Yes, really quick wins in doing that. So yeah, if you've got some time, always do some housekeeping.
Yeah, love that. Great suggestion. Cool. We knew this was going to happen. So the way that I read this, I think we might have said the same thing last week. Unless you're paying for Twitter, then you might as well not bother, because you won't be reaching people. So they'll continue to restrict it until everyone does pay. And I think this will be one of the deciding factors as to whether these new networks that are here to be like the places to mop up all the Twitter users, all these new networks we've been speaking about. So this will be fascinating. That being said, Twitter's still a fantastic place to engage in conversation, because there's still few platforms that beat the ability to get into a conversation, meet new people. So that engagement element still as strong as it always was, right? So I know you speak a lot about like academics and such, which is still a fantastic place to start conversations, etc. So I don't believe in like kicking Twitter into touch, because it's great for new connections. But in terms of a platform to publish to, already we know that non-verified accounts are not going to be in a For You feed. And we know that it's just going to continue to get downranked. That being said, if Twitter is your thing, then $8.99 to kind of use the platform to grow your business seems like still fairly good value to me. But either way, I can't really speak about how good value it is, because I can't really see the impact of the reach. But one thing that is good to know is that the vast majority of those people that are subscribing to Twitter Blue are those with under 1,000 followers. So they're using it as a growth tactic to reach new people quickly. So that could well be an angle. So if you know your audience is potentially on Twitter, of which, for some businesses that I advise, they're in construction, their audiences are on Twitter. So that's actually quite a good tactic. So, this isn't all bad, but of course, essentially I'd view this as like paid media and put this in your kind of social budget. That's my take on this. I don't know if you've got any.
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's sometimes when there's such a big shakeup of a platform, it gives you a chance to review and think about it rather than doing what you've always done. And I think there has been, again, kind of that part of that audit, but also risk assessment, crisis management. What do these changes mean? Will they impact your business? Are you still happy to be on this platform? Is it so meaningful for you? What are you using it for? It just gives you a chance to think rather than keep doing the day-to-day. Absolutely. I'm experiencing the people that I'm working with around, yes, increased reach if you are paying for it, benefits. It's often been quite hard to grow. Years ago, growing your account on Twitter was a lot easier than I believe it is now, but I do still feel that there's a huge value in Twitter for listening. What's the opinions around a subject? What's going on in the world? So you're right, academics, journalists, thought leaders, this is still where they're sharing. And dare I say it, I spend a lot of time in comments, not just reading the original tweet, but all the comments that come underneath it is where people share what they're thinking, feeling and doing. So if I want to understand the world, Twitter is probably my go-to platform.
Yeah, it's so good for like customer insights, user insights. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Great call out. We've now got a highlights tab, which is similar to kind of your pinned posts on other networks too. So there's any post you really want to highlight. This is quite a good one. Yes, so if you've been eyeing up a handle for a while, there's a load that are about to become available and also if you see your followers drop, this will be why, big purge, etc. Don't know exactly when this is happening, but yeah, keep an eye out for that. But that's it from a Twitter perspective. So back over to you, Luan, for LinkedIn.
So, LinkedIn, as I said, 20th birthday. And I am not, and I've shared this before, I'm not always a huge fan of putting your efforts into company pages because they are there, you need to complete them. The power of LinkedIn, has always been in people and personal profiles. But we have seen LinkedIn adding new features to company pages over the past few months, years. And this is probably the biggest one, the ability to message a company page. I think this is a game changer. Will people do it? Will company page admins be aware of it and look out for it? But this is why the power has always really sat with personal profiles, because a company page has been quite static. It's been where you could post content. I would always, focus it on a content hub that employees always share out. But now being able to message company pages, I think is going to change the game. It may change the game in terms of the posts that you put on your company page to encourage people to respond and send you these kind of request a demo, support careers. I think this is a shift. Those tools coming. So you do get the option to switch it on or off. You may need to again, housekeeping. Who's an admin of your company page? Are they aware that they're an admin of their company page? Who's going to do the responses to the inbox here and keep a check on it? Creators. We've talked about creator accounts and these shifts, and we briefly touched on AI. We probably do need to do more on AI, apart from just say it's coming. These features are getting added to the platforms and management tools all the time now. AI is being added to LinkedIn in terms of premium accounts. So some of these features are only going to be available if you have a LinkedIn premium account, and that is getting prompts and ideas, AI generated for creators. I think some of these are linked to those collab articles as well, which are AI generated. Have a look at it, see how useful they are for you. Test AI post assistance. Again, AI opportunities to help you write your posts. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think you all need to decide where you sit on using ChatGPT and others to create your posts. Some organizations, government in particular, may be experiencing bans on using ChatGPT, as well as around bans on TikTok on their devices. How they'll address LinkedIn and social media platforms having AI tools incorporated in them is yet to be seen as well. Again, you need to decide how AI is going to work for you.
Cool. All right, on to TikTok then. So geotagging is coming. So two elements of this. I find this is particularly interesting for a couple of reasons. So I think we reported a few months back, or Google reported, that 40% of Gen Zs go to TikTok first to discover new products. And I think there's a gradual shift, and this is something that's making Google fairly nervous at the moment, a gradual shift away from a younger generation to use social networks over typical Google searches when it comes to new product discovery, looking at new locations, that kind of thing. So this really is TikTok noticing that. Like we've spoken a few months back about the fact that a TikTok caption is now 2,200 characters as they start to really lean in on like keywords. So like TikTok SEO is now a thing, you know, as we move beyond the age of hashtags into, you know, more people using the search function to look for the things that they want. So both being served stuff in the For You feed, but also taking a much more intent driven approach to search. Anyway, geotagging is kind of linked to this as well, where we can now add a location, which we're familiar with and how that works. And also we can recommend places too. So you start to see if you're a location, B2C brand, whatever, starting to see reviews as well. It just goes to show like how much TikTok are leading in going after Google. So increasingly less a social network, more a search engine. And I think that then represents some really interesting perspectives. You know, talking about what you said right at the start about your talk upcoming at the Lighthouse Summit with Katie Howell, like talking about TikTok for B2Bs is very much a thing. New question sticker added to TikTok. We'll be familiar with this from stories as well, but another ways to prompt interaction, participation on our content, more engagement, that kind of thing. So yeah, big fan of that. I'm less of a fan of this, if I'm honest, but it doesn't matter whether I'm a fan or not. It's happening. It's the trajectory. We've already spoken a bit, or Luan, you did around like what LinkedIn are doing with AI, and I've spoken about this months previous, that it's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to social. So we're seeing like AI-driven post prompts from LinkedIn, which is a kind of nice, like gentle toe in the water, won't make people feel too uncomfortable. And then it just goes to show the demographic differences in terms of what the networks are doing, you know, being able to generate AI-driven avatars as well. So, you know, it flies in the face of a movement of authenticity for sure, because it's, you know, it completely changes how you're perceived. But many people, it makes many people feel more comfortable as well. So you're going to see lots more of this type of stuff, what we call generative technology. So much more of that coming. This is, like I said, tip of the iceberg. Back to kind of more less kind of concerning things, I think it's fair to say, more in a kind of normal world that Luan and I like to spend our times in. Add a cover for multiple pictures in photo mode. So you might or might not be familiar that carousels are a thing on TikTok, and they do very well. So uploading, and they're making it easier actually to discover photo mode. So if you go into TikTok and upload a couple of pictures, they've made it much less of a kind of weird workaround way of doing it. So it's much more of a thing. And now we can have covers to that too. So it just becomes a bit easier to organize. And from what I've seen and read, seeing creators get some fantastic results from using photos in TikTok. And I would definitely recommend putting that on your kind of like experimentation list, because it's a lower barrier of entry to use some of the things you might have used in Instagram or other networks, just to test that one out, to see how that works, especially as we're starting to see, even more benefit for TikTok in B2B. Although that being said, I've been an advocate of TikTok for B2B for a couple of years now. It's been a huge boon to like the stuff that I talk about on social. And look at this, text mode is coming to TikTok. Now that is interesting. So not only we've got photo mode, like making it easier, as I said, they're making photo mode easier, but they're also bringing text only posts to TikTok, which is, a fascinating departure from where we've seen the typical trajectory across all the social platforms of like short form, vertical video, yada, yada. And now we're seeing, Instagram come out with a brand new application to rival Twitter. We're now seeing text only come to TikTok. Fascinating. It's a movement of people that are willing to write and read. Who knows? So either way, the way I take it is that it just lowers the barrier of entry again to getting active on a platform, which, despite, I'm pretty bullish on the fact that it won't go away, despite all of the kind of wranglings that are happening. I don't think it will get banned. But like with any social network, I think there's so much growth to be had, but we should always be mindful that these platforms could go away or charge us or change completely in the work of a moment. So, as much as I am we're both like huge fans of how impactful social is in growing our brand, building our businesses, etc. We don't own any of it. So just making sure that we've always got that in the back of our mind as to how we're building, how we're monetizing, how we're kind of driving that intent elsewhere, whether it's into webinars or books or, whatever it might be. Just always making sure we're building that list and building that audience on our own turf as well. Now this is really useful, and I wish all the other networks did this. So they're now starting to display most frequently used words in comments, which I guess as these ones have been blanked out in this example, I do wonder what they were. Probably not fit for work. But like similar to what you were saying about Twitter earlier, Luan, like being able to look through comments and distill the sentiment, what are the things that are coming up particularly useful, as a product business, because that's what I'm doing all the time, because I'm thinking about product and thinking about customer sentiment around needs, around a business product and the things we're building. So interested about what people are saying in comments and being able to surface that through, the most frequently used words. You'll find this through in TikTok analytics. I think it's a good thing. And there we go. We made it in pretty good time, actually.
Do you know what? I love the fact this isn't rehearsed, yet our timings are always there.
Wow.
You'd never know. Never know.
Exactly.
We made it. There is some key themes, isn't there? As there always is. And yes, generative AI is becoming ubiquitous across the social platforms. We can't ignore it. It is coming. Again, I think this is a conversation that if you were to take things back internally, this is one that you need to be aware of and start thinking about how your organization feels about using AI. It's a really important topic. Collaboration, we're really up for this one. A couple of you, chat's been quite quiet today, but a couple of you said yes, you really like this big option focus for Instagram, those new features. UGC, brand growth. This makes our life easier in terms of content creation and making it easier to be able to advertise and promote those as well. Good thing. TikTok shaping up to be the new Google. We saw stats from the beginning of this year around how social media is overtaking Google as a search method. It's what I've been talking about a lot in presentations with clients of actually social media can no longer be that add-on at the end of everything you do. social media has to be as important as all the conversations you have about your website and SEO and driving traffic. So that's, you know, an important one to look at. We've said it a few times now, and actually, because I've got super organized, I have already got a speaker for our September summit, the 28th of September, a case study around using YouTube. So I've got to share that. I won't tell you who it is yet, but it's very exciting. We'll be talking about YouTube and how that is a strong and, we believe, underutilized platform. And yeah, keep an eye on the Twitter alternatives. Early hype is often just that, but we'll wait and see. I should listen back to some of our episodes from like last year and see what we said was going to take off and what hasn't, and whether we were right or not.
Oh, I think usually you and I are pretty miserable. We'll be like, nah, that won't last. It's like, yeah, I think probably show a bit of our age and our fatigue with it all, to be honest.
But it's about these key themes, isn't it? And you and I have had a chat in between these sessions around how actually there feels like there's so much each month that we talk about. You know, what is this? It's a 50-page slide deck. There is so much each month, but actually, if you were to try and summarize where we're at, 5 months into this year, there's core themes.
Oh yeah.
So try not to get so overwhelmed by this feature's changing and there's a trend here. There is core themes coming through, and it's our summaries that I think are the most important.
Yeah, exactly. It feels at a micro level, feels like things are changing all the time. But yeah, like with most things in social, like I say this all the time about social, about analytics, about anything, about business reporting, just zoom out. Just don't look at it too closely, because everything looks very complex close up. When you zoom out, actually you can start to see the bigger picture, and just pay notice or take notice of the general trajectory of these platforms. It's very clear where they're headed, each of them. So yeah, that's it. Anyway, do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions, apart from thank you, Alana, who said she thinks we're spot on with our predictions. Great update. Yeah, join us both next month as part of the summit. I've put the link in the chat. I think there's some really great topics that sit around all of these updates as well. So, you know, we focus on the updates because it's the here and now, and we're all doers on a day-to-day basis, but there's a lot of big picture topics as well: diversity and inclusion, B2B brands, Gen Z, what are they doing? So hopefully the summits will support your thinking on those as well. Until next month, I will see you at the end of June, if not before, Andy. A huge thank you to everyone joining. Take care.
Thanks so much, everyone. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.